MAGA supporters at a San Diego Patriot March clash with Antifa and cover each other in pepper spray as officers are pelted with rocks, glass bottles, and eggs. A Patriot March was scheduled at Pacific Beach by Donald Trump supporters. An hour before it began, the Fascists gathered to countermarch. There were several clashes between the groups, both physical and verbal. Demonstrators used pepper spray against each other and threw objects at cops. The march came 3 days after the violence at the Capitol, although it was scheduled for Saturday, before Wednesday's events in D.C. One protester held a sign saying no Nazis in PB. I would imagine those were the Trump supporters holding those signs with the Nazis on the other side. Another held a sign saying Ashli Babbitt Deserved It. They love the cops, I guess, now. A reference to a rioter who was killed Wednesday at the Capitol. Reinhold deserved it. As the afternoon dragged on, shouting matches between the opposing groups began to take place. Like somebody's getting hit with the pepper spray here. It looks like the fascists are spraying Trump supporters in this particular photo. Not sure what this guy's doing. This guy. You know, interestingly enough, and I'm sure you've probably heard this before, but that's what they were saying about the wisdom of the Antifa individuals. BLM, I'd say more so Antifa, relative to the Trump supporters that were allowed into the Capitol building a few days ago, is that these fascists always wear masks, so they're able to be hidden. Whereas the Trump supporters that were allowed into the Capitol, they just roaming around, no masks, so they were easily identifiable. That's how the fascists like this are able to get away with their crimes. There you see the Ashli Babbitt sign they talked about. There you see the group of Trump supporters. The LA Times reports a man had his phone slapped away and was shoved, causing him and a small boy to fall down. It's not clear what side any of those involved were on. After that, a man walked towards the fascists and shoved a demonstrator, writing with police chalk. Here you see the fascists here with their terrorist flag, BLM. Those burn really well, I hear. If they weren't expensive, if they were cheap, I'd get me several of those to burn as well. Terrorist organizations like BLM, I can never rock with them. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The fascists confronted the shover, but the instigator was pulled behind the police line by cops. Incidents of pepper spray being deployed by protesters and further shouting matches and taunts resulted in an unlawful assembly being declared at 2:30 p.m. Those who remain or return against this lawful order may be cited, arrested, and risk exposure to chemical agents and less lethal force applications, the San Diego Police Department said on Twitter. Are they tweeting that out when people are there? I don't know. Are these fascists and Trump supporters looking at the Twitter feed for the San Diego Police Department when this is going on? Let's check for the update from the police department. It looks like here the fascists are after one of the Trump supporters. It's not really rocking Trump gear, but look at this guy here. Looks like he's taking aggressive action with his skateboard, huh? Interesting. Doesn't it look that way? It's pretty aggressive to me. Needs a skateboard, I guess. At 4:30 p.m., however, the Trump supporters were again allowed to get back together and start marching, with continued clashes with counter-protesters and passers-by. By 6 p.m., the march was over, and the crowds dispersed. This is what you have to understand about Trump supporters out here. Look at all these white supremacists. Shh, don't tell. Look at that. Look at that. White supremacist. White supremacist. White supremacists. They're everywhere. Can you believe that the Trump supporters, they always tell me they're the N-word and ending with the I. Also, supremacists, they always tell me that that's just what they tell me. Alt-right, far-right. Can you believe that these white Trump supporters, look, Trump supporters are so low, such scum on the bottom of the barrel now. They are so low that all the white Trump supporters have gone as far as painting themselves black. They call them black. Their skin tone is not even black. They used brown paint. It's really good paint, though, they've got. I've got to swing over by Party City and see if I can get some of that brown paint. Maybe paint myself that, get a MAGA hat. Go in disguise. That'll fool them. They won't even know I'm white if I put the paint on my skin. But can you believe that they're getting smarter? Those Trump supporters are getting smarter. They're now painting their skin brown so as to avoid being called a supremacist. Over the course of the day, however, there were incidents of police officers being struck by flying glass bottles, rocks, and even eggs, though it was not clear who was responsible for the projectiles. That's not good. We don't want to see that. At some point, police also fired pepper ball rounds into the fascist faction of demonstrators. Look at that, another white Trump supporter. He didn't get the brown paint this time. He got, what would we say? He grabbed some brown paint and then mixed it with a little white paint to kind of create a lighter shade to where he looked Hispanic. But don't be fooled, this is actually a white guy here, supremacist. Painted himself disguise. During the dueling protests, one jogger paid no mind and kept their business. When they say kept her business, so the reason why this drew me to this, other than the obvious, the missus and I were out. Let me scroll back up a little bit so you can get that if you want. The missus and I were out at the beach today, went on a jog earlier. Divisiveness that's been going on, the media portraying one side as the worst human beings ever and getting individuals riled up, causing this situation. Politicians, media, social media on one side of the aisle, for the most part, getting individuals riled up to where they think the other side is the worst thing ever, to where they're all terrorists. So we listened to all of that stuff, and we can see the kind of hate and division it causes, but we were out at the beach. And hearing everything that's gone on, there's a ton of people out at the beach today. It's nice weather, sun was out, nice weather for winter, 65-ish degrees. Go get our jog in. There's so many people out jogging, rollerblading, riding their bikes. And in the car afterwards, I was telling her, you hear a lot of this stuff on the news. I was just giving her my take or my opinion. So you hear a lot of this stuff on the news because she was commenting about the number of people out there. And I said, think about everything you hear about on the news, about how everything's falling apart and how one particular side will tell you this is the worst thing in the world. It's treasonous, it's sedition, and how people are getting dragged into this kind of battle, political, corporate, athletes, actors, entertainers, as I said, people are getting drawn into this. You see these people out here, they just seem to be wanting to mind their own business. They don't want any part of it. And so that's what I thought about when I saw this photo. Is this woman, does she seem to want any part of this? Imagine if Trump supporters were over here on this other side and then you got the fascists over here. She just wants to jog. These people that are going along the beach in San Diego, on the boardwalk there, do they want to have anything to do with any of this? And so that's what I feel like is happening for the most part. Now, granted, the push and pull has to happen. The pushback has to happen against what's going on in the media right now, how politicians are behaving on one side of the aisle. The pushback has to happen because, by and large, people don't want this in their lives. We just want to, this is what I was telling my wife, we just want to go out to the beach, go ride our bikes at the beach, go have fun, spend time with our family, get exercise in, do other activities that we like to do. We don't want to have things forced upon us or dictated to us. Unfortunately, everybody else gets dragged into it because you have one side that seems to just want to fight for liberty, truth, justice, the American way, as they say. But then you have this other side out there that their only way of trying to accomplish things or trying to remain in power or get more power is to convince their side that the other side is the worst human beings ever to exist and they must be dealt with. The useful idiots, as we've talked about. So that's just what I was telling her was whenever you hear stuff, just keep in mind what you see out there. And I think that by and large, people don't want to get dragged into this. Unfortunately, politicians do what they do so they can remain in power, so they can fundraise. I've alluded to it before, my idiot congressman. He's outgoing, 10 days left. Idiots like him will keep sprouting this fear, keep sprouting this nonsense on their Twitter account in order to get people riled up so he can fundraise and try to get back into office in 2022. It's scum like that that really have no place in society. It's because of scum like him that you have scum like this. If you didn't have these individuals, as I've talked about before, corporations, politicians, media, athletes, just so out there, so hard trying to divide everybody and trying to mindfuck everybody into hating each other, then people would realize who the real problem is. And it's the criminals that are in office. that are the problem. It's the criminals that are running these companies and screwing Americans over by driving jobs overseas, by depressing wages. It's all part of the game, in my opinion. Maybe you see it differently. I think most of you out there probably just want to do your thing and be left alone and not have our politicians sell us out and create division. Is that too much to ask? I guess so. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care, and hopefully you have a good week.